Greetings and salutations, everybody. Hope you're having yourselves a mighty fine day. Please like the video, subscribe, and hit that bell so the servers don't come and attack our town. I'm joined by my partner in crime. Go ahead and talk to the people.
Heyo everybody, Haku here. Gotta do the same intro every time.
Yes, I was gonna do the hey yo, just I'm like I'll let him do it. I was gonna steal it for a second, but Haku has just completed the first season of Kubera, One Last God, story and art by Kurigam, and I just wanted to kind of pick his brain and talk to him about it. Obviously, we're not going to get into anything later on in the series, so we're just gonna stick to the first season. Comments stick to the first season. And I just want to see how he's feeling about it. I also want to kind of do a little bit of a contrast in comparison to how you think it compares to like at least the first season of Tower of God and just kind of like what you took away from it. And the first thing I want to ask you is, generally speaking, like just your general thoughts. Like, how did you think it was, like from an artistry standpoint or writing standpoint so far? Do you think it's a good start to a series? Was it too slow, too boring? Like, just kind of your general thoughts, and then I'll laser in and focus.
Okay, so general thoughts, I really loved it. I actually think Kubera is really good just right from the start. Right from the start, I was like, it feels unique and special. And I don't know like how much you want to get into before we get into the specifics, because I feel like I could just sit and monologue for like 30 minutes. But I will say, just warning before getting in, I watched your, review of season one before this,
Yeah.
and what you said about rereading stuff and like your knowledge for Kubera compared to other things is true to me too.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, with Tower of God, I've been reading since 2011. I've reread probably like 15 or so times at this point. So I feel like I have a really deep knowledge. But for Kubera, my knowledge really isn't as deep.
My chat
That's why
carries
I'm
me,
going
bro.
back
They carry
through.
me.
Yeah, like as I'm doing it, as I've been reacting, I've been trying to go back through and literally take notes because it's so detailed that I'm like, I don't really need to take notes on like Omniscient Reader or some of the other stuff I'm reacting to. But Kubera's got so much that I'm just like, if I do not go back and take notes and do reviews, I am not remembering all of this. Just, I'm not going to remember it.
No, I understand. It's I'd actually still argue Tower of God is a very dense series. It starts off pretty dense too, but that's kind of like because Bam is our vantage point into this new world, this tower that we're in. I kind of always call it a pseudo isekai in that sense because he did come from a technically like a different world here. So we have to learn with him. Where this is already an established world that she's been in for a while. So I'm gonna give you for me. I actually had read Kubera back in like 2014, 2015, and I didn't dislike it, but it was just one of those things where like I just kind of fell off, and I'd gotten so far. I'm like, I'm not in the mood until I did. I think both of us did a poll for like another webtoon. Omniscient readers viewpoint and Kubera were winning, but for me, ORV was winning for a little bit until one of my mods put it in the Kubera Discord, and then it shot up, and I'm like, all right, let's do this. And
That's what
I don't regret it. Like I made a video about this a while ago, maybe like 3 years ago. Kubera kind of saved my channel because when SIU was on its hiatuses and I wasn't totally feeling what's happening in season three, this really reinvigorated my creative spirit again. I had burnt the flame had gone out a little bit, so yeah.
That's what I have. I've constantly been hyping up the Kubera comments and the Kubera fan base because, like, I've had some bad fan bases of things I've covered before. Usually, things are fine. You get some good comments, you get some bad ones. But the one I always default to is when I covered Tensura or Reincarnated as a Slime. Every single like time I did a video on it, there's just constant people spoiling me in the comments. But for Kubera, it's like people have been like super like kind and amazing, and there's this love for Kubera that the fan base has for it
Yep.
that I feel like other series I just haven't got from. And like whenever I bring it up, people are like, that's because Kubera's just good. It's like the fan base doesn't have to be negative when it's just good. And like some people have said, it's because Kubera is so complex that it's self gatekeeping. Like if you're not willing to meet Kubera for Kubera, then you're gonna fall out of it because it is dense.
I love that you said that because to me, I want to be something. I've never said. I don't say this too often, but my viewers know this. I don't actually love like webtoons necessarily. Like, I read a lot of webtoons and webcomics or whatever, but I'm talking about like the like official like Naver. Like I don't. I actually enjoy a lot of them, but I enjoy them when I like switch my brain off. Ooh, it's colorful and they do beams, kind of thing, right? Like Noblesse being the first one that I ever experienced, and I like Noblesse. I love Frankenstein. I think he's one of my favorite webtoon characters. But to me, Kubera was the first webtoon that I that's not true because the Tower God was there. That I fully respected from like a writing standpoint. And like you said, if you're not willing to engage with it and meet with it, you're not. It's self gatekeeps. But I think this is the first series with this level of lore and world building and character building that I think really rewards your patience. You haven't gotten to the payoff part yet. You will get there, but it's like for some people, a slow start like this, a slow burn like this doesn't work for them. I'm a patient dude and I like this. As long as I know the foundation that you're building, you're going to build something on it that means something to me. I don't like when it's like, all this information that I thought was going to be important isn't important. You wasted my time. Kubera does not waste your time, and that's one of the reasons I have a tremendous amount of respect for it.
I actually love the slower pacing because to me, I say this a lot. I've never seen a series ruined by taking things too slow, but in contrast, I have seen so many series ruined by skimming over things or skipping over things or trying to rush too fast. And to me, one of the things I always say that pre-time skip One Piece is like 10 out of 10, near perfection, up there with like Avatar The Last Airbender in like series that I consider like near perfection. And with pre-time skip One Piece, one of the things I loved is just the chapters where they're just exploring a new island, or just the episodes of the anime where they're just hanging out on the ship. So I love just taking time and letting us explore the world. That's what a lot of people, I think, when I was in that segment where Lee's and Asha's group is like heading to Misty Shore, and it's kind of slower. They're really just taking their time. It takes multiple chapters to travel there, to hang out in Misty Shore. But I love that stuff because I'm just like, let's just sit in the world. Let's just let the characters explore the world and see things through that. So I like the slow pace personally.
And it makes it feel very alive, and also because things are constantly happening, whether the main party is there or isn't there, it doesn't feel like you're playing a JRPG where like they're all NPCs and things only happen when you finally get to that part of the game. Like things are always happening, so I definitely appreciate that about it. But I'm very excited for you to get through the second season. I'll ask you if you have any predictions in a minute, but I wanted to know if you had a favorite arc in mind for the first season. I'll just let you know, generally speaking, the Night It Rained Fire is the season one like king, and I agree with that sentiment too. Like for me, it's the Night It Rained Fire, but maybe you had a different thought. Cause like for season one of Tower of God, I always say it's the test of doors. Hansung examination is for me like, oh, I like this. Like that's my favorite part of season one. So
For me, Tower of God season one, when it first hooked me, was like right from the beginning when Bomb wakes up in like that field and they're like, okay, now you need to narrow it down to like 300 people. That's what hooked me. Season one favorite arc for Tower of God, I'd say, is like Crown Game or something maybe. But
most
for
people say that.
Kubera, since you mentioned like favorite characters and favorite arcs, I tried to think about it a bit, and I really like The Night It Rained Fire. But I think for my favorite, I would either say, I don't know if this is I don't know if one of these choices is just like recency bias, but I'm between The Sorrow of Loss, because I really like getting into like Brilith and Agni and Genharva's pasts and
Okay.
everything. And of course, like, Asha and Lee's are always good, but getting into all of that stuff was good. Or I really, really love Lies for You, the last one.
Okay.
Like, I love them just exploring, going through the Carte channel. Taraka, I think, I was like, I'm having so much trouble deciding between all these characters that I love. Then Taraka comes out of nowhere last minute and has one of my favorite stories from season one. So it's like, and it took Yuta, who was a character who I already liked, but like maybe not as much as some of the others, and really, really developed Yuta. It developed Lee's a lot further. It made Ron a much more complex character than I thought he was going to be. So like, I
Nice.
really think my favorite, it might be recency bias, but I think Lies for You might be my favorite.
No, that's fine. I'm not mad at that at all. That makes sense to me. It's still good. And another thing that Kubera does, which sometimes makes it hard to separate arcs, is they flow so seamlessly into one another. So sometimes even though you know it's quote unquote chapter this is the next arc, it still feels like you're just still following the same stuff to some degree. So sometimes that makes it hard. Like I there's a lot of arcs in season two I have a hard time separating because a lot of the same plot threads are going through it. It's just that maybe a different viewpoint, different vantage point, maybe different area, a couple different characters, but the main central thing they're focused on is has been happening for the last like 4 or 3 arcs. So but I'm not mad at that. That's a good one. What about so characters. I'm going to tell you this first. This is well known in my community, but while I do not, I have to make this distinction because sometimes when I tell people I don't like something or don't, they think I think it's bad. Gandhavra is an amazing character, even as early as season one, and he gets better and better written. But I hate him. I don't like him. I cannot stand him. I know drowning him doesn't work, but I want to drown him. That's what I want to do. So I don't know if there's a character that didn't move you, but who were some of your favorites? You know, mine was Irie at the time. I liked the fight, which was fighting the Suras and she healed herself. I'm like, oh, she's cold. I like her. But did you have some favorites? You don't have to like order them or like just talk about some of the characters that really stood out to you. If even if it's all.
I really think I loved pretty much all of them. Like there were multiple times when it almost felt like two separate series where like we'll focus on the night it rained fire with like Brilith and Agni and everyone and the Shura characters, and I'm like, oh, I really really like this. I think Shess came in. I liked him like really quickly when he showed up. But then we'll have another like we'll jump over, and the other arc is just like Asha and Ron and Lise. And I think Lise is really funny. Lise is a really good character. She would be up there. Asha would definitely be up there. I love that Asha's just disrespect. She kind of does it with Ron a bit, but mostly with Lise, where Lise can't even get a word out. Lise will open her mouth to say something, and Asha is just completely shutting her down immediately, just like the harshest character. I really, really loved that. I think Gandharva was actually an early favorite for me, like in the early
Agni was my first
of
favorite.
season one. For me, it's funny because like Pate Ardiawal, who is a member of my community and everything, was making a tier list for me to do a tier list of season one, and there are characters in there like, oh, the Shura that got rescued, or the girl that was working the gate that talked to Gandharva and everything, and I'm like, oh, I freaking love them. They're like side characters who didn't really do anything, but I'm like, oh, I really love them. Meanwhile, there's characters from like Sagada's flashback who, like, I don't even remember the one character's name who was important in Sagada's flashback, and I'm just like, I'm sure the community cares a lot more about them. I'm sure the community loves them more, but they didn't really move me. They showed up for like a chapter and I didn't really care that much. Maybe it's just because like I haven't gotten to taking notes and reviewing that stuff yet. But for my overall favorite, my number one, I'm gonna say Cossack. I think Cossack was my favorite.
Retro Clan, I like it.
Like
Dragons.
he was so cool in The Night It Rained Fire. Plus, I love his personality and story with Agwen, who I also really, really like.
Shout out to the daughter. Yeah, got to put the emotionless earrings thing. Yeah, I remember that. Oh man, that's odd. I like that you said that because that's my favorite Sur clan, the Reacher clan, like the dragons, like so. That moves me. That's a good answer. He's one of my favorite characters too, even to this day. So that's what's up. That's what's up.
So yeah, season one, I think Cossack's number one for me.
Okay. So one of the criticisms that this series gets, at least this early, is similar to TOG, which is the artistry. I don't know if you want to focus on that. Does the artwork not move you?
Yeah,
think it's bad,
I can talk about the art for a bit.
Yeah.
I can definitely talk about the art for a bit because I like it. I feel like there's so many manhwa with really really good art. Like I'm reading ORV right now. ORV has the benefit of being an adaptation of a novel. On top of that, it is made by a full team and it looks really really good. But then I look at a bunch of other manhwa and I'm like, they really look the same. They all look the same. Even Tower of God in the current Tower of God art style.
It's gotten
there's
more
more
generic.
and more.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's more and more times in season one that I didn't think about it before I started reading ORV, but after reading ORV, I'm like, did maybe a member of the same team join CU's staff as one of the new assistants or something? Because there are a lot of faces in season three that I think look a lot like the faces in ORV.
Yeah.
But I love that Kubera is kind of like cartoony. It's kind of a little bit different. I really, really like how unique it is. And I think that works a lot because it sets Kubera apart. Kubera looks and feels really different, but it works because Kubera's world is so different. It's so complicated. And I like that Kurigam, so often we have these like worlds in fantasy and stuff where years, days, weeks, months, whatever work the same as in reality. But like this is a totally different planet. So like there are different periods of time, a completely different culture than what we're used to on Earth. And I feel like the art plays into that. I think the art also plays into the comedy really well
Yep.
because Kubera is really, really funny. Like it is genuinely just a super, super funny series. And I love that it doesn't take itself too seriously with the art and everything. Like you have what, Kaz's brother or whatever, who's just like a blob the whole time. Like I like that stuff. Or like
You got
how
Lila
we,
with the silly mask on.
yeah, this limit, and like we'll have stuff. I think I thought about this first and talked about this first in,
Rand always failing college.
yeah, that Ron's also a really funny character. I love the scene towards the end of season one where this whole time Ron thinks Asha's a man and everything, and we learned that he saw her in the shower and everything, and that just feels like the setup for this generic joke that you've probably seen in like 1,000 series, where the guy thinks, or like a character thinks somebody's a man or a woman, walks into them changing or in the shower or something, and that's like the reveal that they're whatever. But I love that Ron afterward, we learned that he walked in and he's like, bro, what is that dude's problem? We're both guys, why does he care so much? Even after walking in, Ron still thinks that Asha's a man. And I think that that's hilarious because instead of going the generic route, he still is clueless.
Yeah.
But what I was gonna say is, what arc was it? It was Lies for You, when we have this serious discussion and these serious, like, lore character building moments with Gantarva and Agni, yet they're presenting it through like this chibi art style that I thought was like really good. Just delivering us these serious moments, but not like taking yourself too seriously.
Yeah. It's very, very, very vibrant, So yeah, like and expressive especially, which
Yeah.
matters to me, right? It does get better, it does improve. Another one is obviously a lot of people are like meatheads and they need people to get thrown through 568 mountains for it to be good. Did you find like the lack of like punchy action to be a problem?
I don't really mind. I feel like that's a part of Kubera, but it's not like all that Kubera's about. Like the action's been fine. Like it hasn't really bothered me or anything. I don't feel like I'm missing anything. And I feel like it's been more about the characters, the overall world. It feels like Kurigam has a really complicated story where I've just seen teeny little bits that I'm like, oh yeah, that's going to be important in like hundreds of chapters. And so I think it's more about the story, the comedy, the romance, and it doesn't bother me as much because I'm not a strictly shonen guy. Like because you've been in anime and manga stuff too, where like there are people that will only watch or read pop shonen. All they're doing is pop shonen. That's
Yeah.
it. So I'm not that kind of guy. I watch slice of life. I love slice of life. I love romances. Like I watch a ton of everything. Like when I did the 50 anime from 2022, or right now, I keep saying, and I will take any opportunity to shill it. I I am covering Marriage Toxin, and I keep saying it's my favorite manga right now. And again, there is action in it, and I think Marriage Toxin's action is really, really good, but it's not really about the action, like completely. It's also about the romance and the comedy. And Kubera is much the same way, where I think the action's fine in Kubera, but there's just more going on.
Yeah. No, I totally agree with those sentiments. Again, me and you are people who like like an I read series with a bunch of romance series where it's just. I mean, again, I credit that to Death Note. Death Note was one of the first manga I read. Kind of. I mean, I guess I kind of started with Ranma and stuff, but it was still they still they still fought in the Ranma, even though it was a romantic comedy. But Death Note was the first series where I was like, I enjoyed this intellectual battle between L and Light, and then Light and L's disciples, if you will, so much, and I didn't really care if they fought or were shooting or having actually. It was like I just wanted to see people talk and do intelligent stuff. So that's paid dividends here as well, where it's like I really don't need you to punch somebody through a million mountains, but if you're gonna talk me to death, make sure that the conversation is meaningful, and we'll circle back to something potent later. And
Yeah, true.
I can say
For
this
me,
does
for
that.
me, I would actually credit I'd probably credit K-On! Because I think K-On! Might have been the first where it's like not not like pop shonen, not like people fighting and stuff, where it's just a group of girls just playing music and stuff, and I'm like, oh, this is chill. I like this.
Kaon was cool. Was it Euphoria? Hibiki Euphoria, something like that. There's another music one that I liked. There's a few music ones that I liked. Obviously, Beck, Mongolian Chop Squad was one of my favorites. But I again, for me, good is good. Like I always say, I make the joke. This story can be about a pencil and an eraser falling in love. But like, as long as you can write and deliver it and package it well, I'll be receptive. Like, I really don't particularly care what the story is about or what time period it's in or what the genre is. I just care that it's good and well done and well executed. Execution to me is
Yeah,
king.
I'm really the same way.
Yeah. So, and I'm open minded. I wasn't always because, especially with Mecha. Oh man, I was a Mecha hater. I can't say I'm a Mecha
Yeah,
lover, but I'm a Mecha acceptor.
yeah. You know what? I actually think I'm in the same boat where I'm like, I feel like when I was a kid, Gundam came on TV, and same with Transformers and stuff. So I was like watching Gundam and Transformers on TV as a kid and being like, oh, this is cool. But then as I got older, I'm like, oh, it's so lame. Why would you watch robots fighting each other? Then I watched Code Geass, and I'm like, that's maybe the best anime ever made. But I never really liked the robots in it. It's more the like character stuff.
Yeah. It was Gurren
And
Lagann for
even
me.
now,
Topoteka and Gurren Lagann. That was the one for me that opened the door.
even now I like the idea of mecha, I guess, or like I'm open to the idea. I'm like mecha can be good, but like even now I struggle to think of mecha that aren't like mecha that are actually about the mechs that aren't kind of mid. Like I went into Witch from Mercury thinking like people are hyping that up, that's going to be good, and I was just kind of like it's kind of B tier for me.
Yeah.
It isn't what I was hoping.
I I can't say that I seek them out or look for them
Yeah, I'm still not
or
a big
even
mecha guy, I
check
guess.
when like I see one on my timeline, but a good one I'll watch. I'll sit and watch through it. Like I don't have a problem. I end up getting through Gundam Seed and Gundam Seed Destiny with Mula Flaga. I like that name. A little bit after and stuff. I did another Gundam, but it's just it is what it is though. But with that being said, season one of Kubera, I wanted you to tell me if you saw any commonality and overlap with it, that with Tower of God season one maybe. It it's the two seasons from from those two webtoons that get compared a lot. I know people used to ask me like, do I feel like Kubera and Tower of God are the same? I'm like, no, I really don't, honestly. Obviously they're going to share some commonality and some overlap, but I wanted to know if you saw any of that, and then I'll ask you for some contrast.
Yeah, I haven't really compared them much before
You know how some
this,
fan bases are.
but
They love to compare.
I will say like they feel like they come from the same generation, so to speak.
Okay.
It feels like CU and Kurigam are kind of coming from the same place in a lot of ways, and there are things about season one of both that feel like really like early 2010s, you know? Like season one Kubera feels early 2010s to me. And I'm not saying that in a bad way. In fact, I think that's probably the best compliment. But yeah, I would say too, with the art style being just like, it felt like each of them were people that wanted to make a story. And it's like they just, threw art in to make it a manhwa.
Yeah. especially with
So I
her
would say
because
it's
she is actually a writer more than an artist. She has improved, so I'll
yeah.
give her credit for that. And does it run from the grind like Togashi? Yeah, there's your Togashi stray comments, but
And I would also compare them in the sense that both of them have really complex world building right from the start. It's not like one of those series where you start out and it's like, okay, say like again, I'll use One Piece as an example, where you start out One Piece and it's like, oh, it's just, there's some things going on, but it's basically just this world is a pirate shonen world. And then as you go along, the world gets deeper. Whereas in Kubera and Tower of God, the world is complicated right from the start, like
yeah,
right from the second you step in. And a lot of that I would compare it to because a lot of it hinges on the afterward blog post stuff. And
yeah,
I love the early blog post stuff in Tower of God. I really wish the blog posts would have stayed that way and
yeah.
wish Line would have kept them because you're probably the same way. I don't know exactly when, but I think you started reading Tower of God around the same time as me.
When
I
I
started
caught
in
up,
like
the last
2011.
examination wasn't finished. First season wasn't done yet. I think it was the end of 2010 or early 2011, around there.
Yeah, so like pretty much the same time as me because when I caught up, I can never remember if it was during hide and seek or last examination. It was one of the two. So I was reading on Batoto. You might have been as well. That's where the company always was. And at the end of every chapter, there was the blog post. And so the blog post to me was a part of the chapter. That's just a part of what you read.
Agreed.
And I love that. It made the world deeper, it made the characters deeper. And I think that Kubera kind of does the same thing where it's like, I love that extra information on the characters, that extra information on the world, stuff that doesn't really fit into the chapter. Like, how would you really write that into the chapter? But it builds the
It
world
complements
further.
it. Yeah.
And yeah, it helps you appreciate the world and the story more to have that information. But that information just being like, just like if some character just gave us a big rambling monologue like paragraph long, it like would be a less cool way to convey that information. Just give us that information as an aside as an author and then say, okay, now read the next chapter.
There it is. No, I agree. But cause my audience always likes to ask me like what's better and what's whatever. And honestly, I especially when it comes to the first two seasons of those two series, I actually think each have their strengths and weaknesses to some degree. I think both season one and season one of Kubera and Tower of God are very, very good. I think season two of them are really good. It's really season three with Tower of God where I start to have issues personally. But the thing I want to say though is a little bit of amateur's art, yeah, but it gets better and gets more concrete out, like you were saying. But the thing about Kubera to me that is consistent from the first season to when you eventually catch up is her pen is amazing. Her pen is sharp, bro. Like it seems to me like she definitely planned out a lot of things in advance or much ahead. Where there's times, especially now, it comes across to me that Slave in Utero was kind of like doing a chapter and then starting with a blank slate and having to remember everything he's done before and keep it going. And that's not a knock on anyone's process. You write how you write. Everyone's process is different. But I'm starting to see the weaknesses in it. Obviously, I don't know that for a fact. I don't. But
Yeah,
sorry, real quick. As far as any webtoon that I've read ever, and as far as any ongoing thing that I'm reading or thing that I'm reading currently, I don't think any of them are a better writer than Kurigam. None. Not a single one. And I love, Araki and JoJo and all kind of other things, but they can't write like her. She's different. I think she's one of them ones. She's like top 10 best writers I've ever experienced. And I'm talking with Brandon Sanderson and other writers that I revere a lot. Murakami for some of those Japanese novels. Nishio Ishin being my personal favorite. Monogatari, Madaka Box, etc. So, but yeah.
Yeah, even though I'm not caught up or anything, I would actually really agree because people say that it's paid off, so I can go in with the assumption that it is. But there's so much that already I'm just like, okay, we have Lisa's dream after her village is destroyed, where her mom's telling her stuff. We have Kaz being shown here and there occasionally. We've got like the visions of the future that we've seen multiple times. Some really deep character stuff that, again, we have to think Cossack's character's going somewhere, Gantarva's character's going somewhere, Agni and Brilith, etc. It's like you can kind of see like the building blocks for things that are way, 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 way down the line are already there. And like even if I don't know where those building blocks are going, I can see that they're already there. And what I was going to interject with earlier is I don't necessarily think one style is better because I've always said Beastars is like one of my favorite manga of all time.
Hmm.
And when you go through Beastars now and when you marathon it, I don't think you will get the same experience as if you had been there weekly. And the mangaka behind Beastars, Itagaki Paru, had said at one point in an interview when writing Beastars, she was like, Beastars is a weekly published manga, so I look to give the best or funnest chapter on a week by week basis that I can. And I loved that because compared, I would always compare Beastars and One Piece before One Piece fell off, obviously,
Hmm.
where I was like, One Piece has stuff that's been set up for hundreds of chapters in advance, and it's a really good overall story when you marathon through the whole story. But on the week to week, there are some chapters where you're just like, we're getting from place to place, or not much happened. There's some individual chapters that are weak, but that's also a good way to write a story because, again, it's the overall plot. And I think that's what Kubera is doing, where I don't really think any of the individual chapters are weak, but it's not like every single chapter is like the best one in the series or anything. But it's written
We're
in a
gonna end
way
with like
that
a powerful
it's
cliffhanger, like ooh,
yeah,
like yeah, yeah.
it's written in a way that it's not crazy week to week. Where again, Beastars to me on a week to week basis, while I would react to a One Piece chapter and be like whatever, react to a Hero Academia chapter and be like whatever, I would react to a Beastars chapter and think that it was like so freaking cool on the week to week.
Hmm.
Like it really delivered a weekly chapter. But when you put it all together, it's like maybe not the tightest overall story, but something like Kubera is written to where like the overall story feels like it's always in mind.
Yes. And again, that's just a difference in styles. There's no not to say one is better than the other, like you said earlier. But this resonates with me on a personal level more, just because I'm somebody who really cares about storytelling and writing. And those aren't the same thing. Like I've always tried to tell my audience, they're not the same thing. You could be a good writer and a terrible storyteller, and vice versa. So
Yeah, I think I'm where you were saying earlier, like if it's good is what I care about. Like
yeah.
if it's good on the week to week, if it's fun on the week to week, but like here's the thing, I always said like old Adam Sandler movies were like what I would always use as an example. I'm like these are not classics. These are not like highbrow film. These are not cinema. But if it's fun, then like I don't get why there's a reason to shit on it. I want something that's fun. So if something on the week to week, if something has a weaker overall story, if it is fun, if it is good, if it is enjoyable, I will read it. And the same thing goes for overall story and everything. Like, again, I can have patience for something if it is good, you know?
Yeah.
Like, I don't care about the writing style so long as it provides me some kind of fun or
Enjoy,
enjoyment in some way.
I'm the same. I mean, again, I can turn the critic brain on and off to some degree, no matter what. And I don't go into everything for the same reason. So, again,
Well,
yeah,
I think I can cut it on and off for like what things are trying to take themselves seriously. Like if something's trying to be like I don't even watch a lot of movies, so I don't know why I'm bringing in movie comparisons. But if something's like Oscar bait, taking itself super super seriously, then it's like I think it's more apt to be critical of it. But like I'm not going to be critical of like when I watch a just titty bouncing ecchi anime, I'm like it's not taking itself seriously. It's just supposed to be fun. Like I'm not going to be super critical of Futoku no Guild. I'm just going to watch it, have a laugh and think that it's fun.
all right, all well said. But I do have to cut it short here, unfortunately. My guest is actually at the door. I didn't think he was gonna get here that fast. So
You're good.
I appreciate you coming. Appreciate you talking to me.
I appreciate you for having me.
Yes, and we'll talk in the group chat to discuss all the other things we were talking about before the stream started. But I'm gonna hit you up.
Hi.
All right, man. Take care. Patreon. I don't know why I did all that. Shout out to the CBLs, Certified BAM lovers. I appreciate you guys. Thank you very much. They be loving Bam, LaBam, James. Shout out to the Priest of Fardo. These are the certified Brilith lovers. They might be the real CBLs. Appreciate y'all. And a big shout out to the 5th Zen Gods, the tier 3s. Shout out to Big Abdel, Abdi Malik, Childish New Jabez, Fairs, Huey, Johnny Rogers. Shout out to Big Mod Catan, Lazy Dragon. Shout out to Lopobia Blaze, Naz Riley, Revenant, Rox G, S, Scobe, Simi, Sly, Tao, Tino Brown, Urek Massino, Wolf General, Zodiac Nemiko, and Zyler Scotty. Your support is greatly appreciated. Thank you. I had grass dipped in honey today. Yeah, nutrition.